September 17, 2019 meeting of the Mount Vernon Board of Education to order. Please stand.
We got the link for the pledge. I think it's the key.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Mitchell. Here. Trustee Patterson.
Present.
Trustee Miller.
Here.
Trustee Williams. Trustee McOwen. Trustee Ning. Trustee Saunders.
Here.
Trustee White. Trustee Torres.
Present.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Are there any communications from the public?
Yes. Good evening. The Mount Vernon Board of Education recognizes the critical importance of community discourse and involvement in the education of Mount Vernon's children, and accordingly, members of the public are invited to speak at each regularly scheduled board meeting, subject to the terms of board policy. Speakers must register in advance by no later than 4 p.m. on the date of the meeting by contacting myself, the district clerk, in person at 165 North Columbus Avenue, via phone at 914-665-5235, or via email format at mtvernoncsd.org. The board welcomes all respectful comment, whether praise or criticism. However, identifying and criticizing a specific student, parent, teacher, administrator, or other Mount Vernon education official or employee is strictly prohibited. Such complaints must be presented and addressed through the proper administrative channels. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes to speak, with up to 1 additional minute to be used for the speaker to summarize and conclude their remarks. If appropriate, board trustees and/or the superintendent may respond to speakers' remarks at the conclusion of our public comment period. Our first speaker this evening is Bishop C. Nathan Edwards.
Madam President, Superintendent, and members of the board, I'm here representing the United Black Clergy as the educational chair of the oldest body of clergy in Mount Vernon, established by the late Reverend Dr. Richard Dixon. We come here today because we want to, first of all, celebrate as we come to the conclusion of the 2020 vision. As we began this journey, some of us was very skeptical about this journey. We've had other bond issues, which we spent a lot of money. Money was inappropriate. Money was not used wisely. But since we're coming to the end of what has been an amazing journey, we want to thank this board for being great stewards with your fiduciary responsibility and ensuring that the distribution of resources has been distributed equitably within our community. There's still much that need to be done. We still have some concerns as it relates to the south side and security. We understand that's underway now. But as a whole, we are proud, not just with the infrastructure of our buildings being lifted and reflecting what we feel the upward trajectory of our community, but also some of the new innovative programs that this vision have brought to fruition. I was so happy the other day. I went to the Performing Arts School, and I met with Dr. Collins, and I was blown when she took me on a personal tour of what is going on in that school and the vision that she has with our children. In fact, I didn't realize that she's been with us for 5 years. She's the best untold story in Mount Vernon. And then when I traveled up Garrison Avenue, yes, give her a hand. She's the best untold story. And she's reaching out, trying to get Denzel Washington. She got a program coming up that we are invested, and we're partnered, our church is partnered with her. We're investing our money in our children because we see the upward trajectory. Also the STEM school, it's so wonderful to go up to Garrison Avenue and look at the front of this wonderful STEAM school, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. It's just fantastic. But the thing that really blessed me, and I'm a minister, so I say blessed me, was the last convocation, in which the superintendent now says that we can't just hang out here. The 2020 vision is coming to reality. We must move on. And the speaker that you had to bridge the gap between the faith-based community, we are the first responders. There have been a great hostility against the faith-based community, but the next tier of this vision is to bring us all together. So I ask the board to please continue to work with our superintendent, continue to work with the community. There will be some issues and concerns, but let us not be combative, and let us not divide our city. I'm glad that the city is coming together from the municipal aspect, but don't allow division to come in. And whatever problem, the issue that you have, work it out among yourself, because we are really happy to see the movement of our district. Of course, we're not satisfied with just 6 points movement, but we've been way in the dumps. And I want to congratulate all of the superintendents, all of the principals that have been working with our superintendent to make this happen. So we are excited. I feel so good. I've been pastoring this community for 30 years. And I feel confident that the next generation of children will receive the best education. And thank you for the Universal Pre-K program that's doing an outstanding job with Dr. White. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop Edwards, for your comments.
And next speaker is Ms. Anderson Cole.
Good evening to all board members, to each and every one of you that have gathered here this evening. I did not show up last week because I needed cooler heads to prevail. So there is a scripture, if you don't mind, that talks about the cool of the day. So now that I'm in the cool of the day, I feel it's best that I can express some of my issues concerning my son, Joshua Cole, who is 9 years old. He came into the district after attending Keller School in Yonkers, which is a special school for children who have some learning disabilities. From the time we entered the Mount Vernon School District, he was inappropriately placed. There was some movement. As of right now, he's in the 4th grade and he has been to 4 schools. Out of all the programs that I did like was the inclusion program. But that was dismantled. I'm consistently hearing that he had program changes, but some of the program changes was on the part of the district, not on the part of me. When I did look at smaller classes for my son, who's on the spectrum, they were behavioral classes. I was not given the option different outside of, because I was able to explore some of the smaller classes maybe twice. It was not an appropriate setting for my son. I thought that he needed strengths. Now we're over at Edward Williams again, the 4th placement, and he's only in 4th grade. Tomorrow I do have a meeting with the principal and the supervisor of Edward Williams so that we can explore other options, some things and support systems that I would like to have in place, because the data is not supporting where he's at right now. He cannot read. Of course, he had a slow beginning, but the placements or their attempts at helping Joshua have not been satisfactory as far as I'm concerned. I have also paid my own money out. I was not even told in the district about the assistance I can get through OPWDD, CDD. Someone at his camp expressed that to me, and now I'm looking into those services. But I believe that I would have appreciated if someone in the district had told me about those outside resources so that my money, I'm being exhausted for supporting him with outside, with finances. That's pretty good right now. So I'm hoping tomorrow that we can explore many options that I've been looking into for my son.
Thank you for coming this evening and sharing your concerns. I'm going to ask Dr. Hamilton to respond.
Good evening. Nice to see you. Yeah, well, you can say you're here. I'm not sure if there's a specific query you have. I would be interested in knowing how your meeting made out, how you make out your meeting tomorrow. I do recall your email as in reference to your son's placement, and I did speak with our special ed supervisors to find out what the history is and confidentiality. Obviously, we can't get into too much specificity in this venue, but I will say after your meeting tomorrow, if you still maintain concerns, just reach out to my office.
I just hope, in the past, you have addressed my concerns even in the middle of the night, okay? But lately, the last couple of emails I sent you, one of them you did not address last year when they were put into their community school about the dismantling of the inclusion program. And you did address my latest email, we found out the information. Okay, thank you. But I will let you know the outcome of tomorrow and the other board members as well. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Hamilton, do you have a report?
I do. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Bishop Edwards, thank you for your comments and your continued support. Very much appreciated. We have a couple of things on tap this evening. We'd like to begin by honoring our staff members who have acquired tenure in our district. And before I pass the microphone to Mrs. Gagnon, I would just like to say that we take the time out to celebrate tenure in our district because it is not an automatic event here. We make certain that the people that we offer this lifetime job to have indeed earned it. I'm proud to report that since this administration has been in place, not a single staff person has received tenure through estoppel. So kudos to HR for managing that with such efficiency. Every person over the last 5 years that has acquired tenure has done so through a process that ensures that we are in fact granting tenure to people who have demonstrated that this is the right fit for them and that they are the right fit for our district and for our children. So we go through this process, this tenure defense process, where we ensure that those folks who have demonstrated a level of commitment and effectiveness and expertise as educators are the people who will help move our district forward. So I say that to say that we want to continue to attract the best and the brightest to ensure that our children are the beneficiaries of your expertise. And as we are proud to honor and celebrate you this evening, I want to thank you for making Mount Vernon the place you chose to make your career, to begin your career or continue your career for those of you where this may be your second stop on your career. So with that being said, Mrs. Gagnon-Krapewski, please take the microphone. And after we recognize you, the board will take a very brief recess and join you for some light refreshments, and then the meeting will resume.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. Good evening, board trustees, Superintendent Dr. Hamilton, members of the administration, members of the public, family, friends, and tenure honorees. Thank you for joining us for our annual Tenure Awards ceremony. For those of you who may not know what tenure is an employment status that is recommended to the board solely by the superintendent of schools. The process includes scrutinizing a wide area of performance areas over a period of several years, and the decision-making process involving tenure is treated responsibly and with the utmost respect. Tenure recommendations, as Dr. Hamilton mentioned earlier, are not made lightly. Tonight, it is an honor and a pleasure to present to you the 58 awardees who earned tenure throughout the 2018-19 school year, up to and including September 2019 candidates. These 58 candidates were part of a hiring cohort in which more than 1/3 were not recommended for tenure. Indeed, the hard work and the standards met by our honorees tonight are to be celebrated. I'd like to call up my colleague, Marcy Tiggs. Is she here already? Ms. Tiggs is our Associate Superintendent for Human Resources. She's going to help facilitate this event. I'd also so Board President here is Arlene Torres and our Superintendent of Schools. So in the interest of time, what we're going to do is we're going to call up each building at a time. We'll ask the building principal to join the reception line with the trustee and with the superintendent so that we can call up the full cohort at one time and to be congratulated and then take a group picture. Okay? So with that said, we're going to start with Benjamin Turner, and I'd like Mr. Rodney McBride to join us. So candidates from Benjamin Turner Middle School are Jonathan Bagwell, Kisa Baginski, and Kevin Christie. Dr. Stephen Crawford. Dr. Stephen Crawford is principal of Columbus School. Candidates from Columbus are Stephanie Fall, Amanda Fisher, Marilyn Pizarro, Maribel Marquina Perez, Lindsay Gutierrez, Sabrina Payne, Muriel Sennett. Medina. Miss Rebecca Jones, would you please join us from Lincoln School? Thank you. The three candidates from Lincoln are Kristen Sappho, Samantha Coney Kaplan, and Julian Green. One candidate is missing, Ms. O'Donnell. School, Mount Vernon High School, Mr. Ron Gonzalez. Okay, there's several candidates from Mount Vernon High School. If you would just hold your applause so they can hear all their names and come on up. So Sonia Wingate, please join us. Catherine McGuire. Helen Murray, Julie Termini, Tanganyika Linda Brown, Tony Trombetta, Vanessa Newby, and Samuel Stern. Let's have a round of applause. Josephina Mendoza, Vivian Russo, Michael Smith, Ayami Ebel, Henry Johnson, Alexa Nassis, Audrey Rome, Shannon O'Donnell, who was in the shared assignment, Jennifer Vogel, and Leslie Matthews. Jelena Chilton, Randy Frankel, and Lori Tucci. Soraya Brown, I'm sorry if I missed her name. Soraya Brown is also from Colfax. Okay, would Principal Dan Brady from Pennington please join us? Okay, the 10 candidates from Pennington are Lori Tucci and Shireen Shames. Jennifer Corey, Maria Falco, and Anthony Williams.
In 2013, a lawsuit was filed against the Mount Vernon City School District and the New York State Education Department, alleging the district was not providing students with disabilities with the educational services in which they were entitled under the Individuals with Disabilities Act. As part of the resolution of this proceeding, the district hired an independent monitor to conduct an audit of the special education process in the district. As a result of that audit, the district and the independent monitor developed a remedial action plan, later referred to as RAP, designed to help the district achieve a greater level of compliance with the IDA and the New York State rules and regulations. The settlement contemplated that the district would collect baseline data concerning its compliance with 15 district requirements of the IDEA, and then implement various protocols and practices required by the remedial action plan to improve its compliance with the law. Every 6 months, the district must measure its progress toward the goals and milestones established by the settlement agreement and report such information to the independent monitor. The settlement agreement contains some reinforcement provisions. If the district does not submit the monitoring statements to the monitor on a timely basis, the district will be deemed to have committed a procedural noncompliance event. If, upon implementing the corrective measures, the district does not meet the goals and milestones set forth in the agreement, the district will be deemed to have committed a substantive noncompliance event. Following of a noncompliance event, the district must develop a plan to correct the noncompliance and review the noncompliance with the board. In the area of noncompliance, if the area of noncompliance is not remediated, the district can be held in contempt and ordered by the federal court to correct the noncompliance. The monitoring statements are posted on the district website. The monitor has identified a noncompliance event with respect to 2 items in the January 2019 monitoring statement. Specifically, the monitor has identified RAP item 1.9 pertaining to graduation rates of students with disabilities. Under the RAP, the district is required to remedy all first-year students in the high school who are not on track to graduate, meaning they failed more than 2 core courses or have high absenteeism rates. For those students, the district must provide research-based strategies and interventions in an effort to reverse the students' performance trend. With respect to this item, there was a delay in producing a list of students who were not on track to graduate and then producing a description of the interventions used to reverse that trend. While the district has since processed and produced most of that information, the monitor has requested some additional information and has asked for clarification of some of the information that was provided. The district is gathering that information and is working with the monitor to make sure that the monitor is satisfied with the district's compliance. The monitor also identified a noncompliance event with respect to item 2.8 concerning the job description and evaluation procedures of special education supervisors. While the district provided a job description, the monitor did not believe the initial evaluation plan was sufficient. The district has since modified the evaluation plan. However, the evaluation procedures are governed by a collective bargaining agreement. The district is working with the union to amend the CBA to include the revised evaluation plan and hopes to have that completed soon. Finally, the monitor has expressed a concern that the monitoring statements are not being completed, certified, and posted on the district's website in a timely manner. The monitoring statements involve an extraordinary amount of time, compiling and organizing data from all of the district schools. I have advised the staff members of the need to complete, certify, and post future monitoring statements in a timely fashion. In July 2019, monitoring statement is posted on the July 2019 monitoring statement is posted on the district's website. I encourage all of you to take a look at the July 2019 monitoring statement to see the district's progress toward the goals and statements of the remedial action plan. I'll resume my commentary after the presentation by the Special Ed Department leadership team.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Okay, so in May 2013, the plaintiffs filed the action of MH et al. Versus Mount Vernon City School District et al. In federal court. The plaintiffs allege that Mount Vernon City School District violated federal and state laws by failing to have in place adequate programs, systems, and procedures to provide a free and appropriate public education. Faith. After a lot of time collecting documents, going through discovery, in April 2016, we made a good faith effort with the attorneys and the plaintiffs to engage in an interim agreement for the development of a remedial action plan, and that's what the board had agreed to, and that's what we're here to discuss. So Mrs. DePaul is going to talk about the monitoring schedule.
So our monitoring schedule. In June of 2018, we submitted a substantial amount of data to the monitor, Dr. Judy Elliott. With that, she reviewed the data. We had numerous phone conferences to clarify and elaborate on the documentation submitted. And within that next few months, so between the, June 2018 and September of 2018, Dr. Judy Elliott was able to establish a baseline. So that was going to be the foundation and the starting point for our work over the next 2 years of that remedial action plan. So this past June, we had submitted our year 1 data. So we were looking at 2 specific schedules, Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, and I'll go into more detail about the details of those particular schedules. Next June, 2020, will be our year 2 submission, and our final submission will commence June 2021. So Schedule 1, that is the most comprehensive document that we are working on currently. So it targets 4 domains or 4 target areas. So number 1, performance of students receiving special education services. 2, the organizational structures to support special education services. 3, instructional practices, supports, and special education service delivery. And domain 4, accountability, compliance, and the least restrictive environment. So over the past year, we've made some big strides in these areas. So I just want to highlight some of our accomplishments. Go back. All right. So domain 1, we have developed multi-year professional development opportunities to support both our general education teachers and our special education teachers with the skills necessary to integrate instruction for all students with disabilities across the continuum. Additionally, we've been providing principals with what we've deemed the administrator boot camp, where we began with the foundations of special education law, the rights of a student with a disability under IDEA, provision of faith, procedures in schools, and implementing IEP. So it really was a successful year-long last year, and we're continuing that this year with our administrators, both building level and district level. For domain 2, the organizational structures, we've worked very hard over the past year to develop a handbook that really encompasses all of our policies, procedures, really everything. It's going to be the Bible of special education in the district, and it is aligned with the Commissioner's Part 200 regulations for New York State. And with that, we're ensuring that everyone is knowledgeable of the policies, procedures, and practices for assuring educational services to all students with disabilities. For domain 3, we are doing ongoing work with our special education instructional coaches. So last summer, we had hired 2 instructional coaches. They're overseen by Dr. Joyce Corpus, who is our supervisor of special education, now in charge of curriculum and instruction. So the work that they're doing, we are so proud of. They are in every school, so they're in all 15 schools supporting all teachers. So they're collaborating with this curriculum and instruction department and their instructional coaches to ensure that there's a common language and that SDI, specially designed instruction, and explicit direct instruction is utilized during the provision of instruction to all students with disabilities. And for the last domain, accountability, we've established a schedule and protocol to review compliance data. All all initial eligibility determinations are held at the Board of Education. There's a centralized team that conducts evaluations and chairs meetings. So what we do, we meet with them bi-weekly, to review upcoming cases, data, if we're approaching the compliance date, to ensure that we are not out of compliance. We put procedures in place to expedite both the meeting and the services to the student with disability.
So we had in addition to Schedule 1, we also had Schedule 2, which is primarily related to issues of compliance with the Part 200 regulations. So our baseline in 2017-18 for initial evaluations was 30%, and the June 2019 target was established by the monitor at 52%. So if you look at the June 2019 target, those are the established rates that our external monitor asked us to evaluate whether or not we met. The annual CSE meetings were at 99.8%, and she wanted us to stay right there. The time to implement the IEPs, which means that we develop and finalize an IEP, and then the building teams need to implement the IEP or the programs and services for the student. So if the student was recommended for a 15-to-1 program with speech and language therapy, those services need to be provided in order to count as making progress towards the time to implement, based on the date that the IEP is implemented. So there's a start date for services on the IEP, and I think she gave us a window of a week, maybe a week to 10 days to check yes or no. Then we had timely completion of what she calls triennials, what we call reevaluations, so you may see some differences in language. Essentially, it's 3-year reevaluations of students with disabilities to determine whether or not they continue to be eligible under the Part 200 regulations. We had provision of home and hospital instruction for elementary students. That's when students are either suspended or out sick for medical reasons, that they are provided with the services and supports that are recommended on their IEPs. The same thing holds for secondary students. And then when we have impartial hearings, which are families decide to take us to a due process hearing, and we settle, or there's an issue from a judge or an impartial hearing officer, as they're called in education, we had to determine whether or not there were timely compliance on the orders and agreements that we had established. And so the baseline was 100%, and we're continuing to be monitored at the same rate.
So the remaining items under Schedule 2 really focus on suspensions. So we were looking at the provision of instruction for students suspended up to 10 days, so that's 1 through 9. And then the provision of instruction for students suspended 10 or more days. And this is within a period of time. So our baseline for students suspended up to 10 days was 0%. Now, we struggled with, finding the documentation to substantiate our provision of services, and the record-keeping mechanism wasn't exactly perfect. So, unfortunately, we were unable to substantiate that we provided services to those students suspended up to 10 days. So we determined that it was a 0% baseline. So our target for June 2019 was 32%. For students suspended over 10 days, or 10 or more days, was 42% with a baseline of 60%. The provision of a manifestation determination meeting. When a student with a disability is suspended, whether it be approaching 10 days or as a result of, with a requested superintendent's hearing, the CSE must convene to hold a manifestation determination review meeting. At this meeting, the committee determines if a child's disability, if the infraction was a result of the child's disability or the district's failure to implement the child's IEP. So we were at a 54% baseline with a target of 68%. The next item, FBAs and BIPs. An FBA is a functional behavioral assessment and the behavior intervention plan. So at the manifestation determination meeting, the committee must review and discuss the need for a behavior intervention plan for a student, whether they have to initiate the process with a functional behavioral assessment or modify a current BIP. So for that, we were at a 0% baseline for FBAs and a 12% behavior modification. And for this area, we use a template script for our manifestation determination meetings, and it prompts the chairperson, what to discuss next. So when we had these MDR meetings, when we were holding them, a lot of the students that were the focus of that meeting already had a behavior intervention plan in place. So, which meant there was already an FBA, we developed a BIP, but again, the BIP would need to be modified, and they would need to discuss the current behaviors to see if there was a need to modify the behavior intervention plan to address those behaviors. And that's the same for the next item as well. The provision of a superintendent's hearing, we were at 35% compliance, our baseline, and there was a stipulation within the indicator about the return to school. We would hold the meeting within the designated amount of time and ensure that if the hearing did not take place, the student was able to return to school. And the last is time to implement. That data and the baseline was broken down by related service for different types of students. So on the chart that is posted on our website, you'll see speech services for initial eligibility, there's a baseline. Speech services for reevaluations, there's a baseline. Speech services for annual reviews, there's a baseline. So it was a lot of data to try to squeeze in this one slide. However, it is all available in our monitoring statement online.
Okay, so this is our Schedule 2 status update. Now, if you look at the 3 columns of initial evaluations, it's because the first one is for evaluations, creation, and implementation of IEPs within the 60-day timeline. So if you look at our June target, it was 52%. We actually met and surpassed the target at 82%. I think showing that when you put systems in place, it has a positive result. The second column or the second row of initial evaluations is for students that were found ineligible. Again, our June target was 77%. We surpassed that at 93%, so we did meet the target. And then the last one is the combination of the first and second. So our June target was 64% and 87 was our actual, so we met that target as well. Annual CSE meetings, the baseline was 100, the June target was 100, and our actual was 100, so we met the target. When we look at time to implementation, we came up with, the target was 84%, our actual was 82%, and we did not meet that target. The reason that we're finding primarily is that we have a hard time with occupational therapy and physical therapy because there's a shortage of service providers. I would say that's the primary reason, and occasionally speech and language therapy, which are all known to be shortage areas. We do contract with BOCES, but even BOCES is having a hard time providing us with related service providers. As far as our timely reevaluations, the baseline was 60%, the established target was 72%, and our actual was 68%. We did not meet that target. It was primarily based on the high school psychologist's inability to find students to evaluate them. So we're working very hard on having a track and detect system so that we can get these students evaluated. The provision of home and hospital, we maintained at 100% for elementary and 86% for secondary. I think that you can see that we kept much better track of students with home instruction this year, so that's why we went up. Okay, then we went to the provision of home instruction. The next three items are still being examined and reviewed by our external monitor, so we don't have the actual, and we don't have whether or not we met the target. We did not meet the provision of FBAs and VIPs. The June target was 100%. We maintained it 80%. And I think that our problem with that is when students have long-term suspensions, it's difficult for us to tweak behavior plans or to conduct the functional behavioral assessment when the student is at home receiving home instruction. So the provision of the superintendent hearings, our actual was 83%, we met that target, and then the next two, and we're going to discuss that further as one of the items where we have an issue of non-compliance with our graduation rates for students with disabilities, both at the 4 and 5 year mark. So we're going to discuss our plan for 100% compliance.
So as it relates to Schedule 1 and 2, we have, well, Schedule 1 actually, we've developed our standard operating procedure. We've also crafted a rollout, a training rollout to all stakeholders in the community. So we were afforded the opportunity at the new teacher orientation to present our procedural manual, our standard operating procedure to all new hires in the special education department. So now we really have to expand out, and we're hoping to utilize our supervisors of special education so that they can facilitate a session at their respective schools to turnkey this procedural manual to all stakeholders in their building and school community. Our school building and district leader boot camps, as we said earlier, we're continuing with that for this upcoming school year. We have supports for all teachers with our special education instructional coaches and their collaboration with the instructional coaches of the curriculum and instruction department. Supports for at-risk students, ongoing chairperson training, which really focuses on compliance and ensuring that legally compliant meetings are being held, the IEPs are being implemented in a timely fashion. And we're in the process of finalizing the new structure for case management. So that is a person designated at every school building who is responsible for ensuring that each student's IEP is being implemented and the services are being provided.
So now I'd like to specifically discuss our plan for Schedule 1 of item 1.9. We don't have a PowerPoint for that. The actual language of the issue of noncompliance is on our district website, but it does say that 1.9 is to identify and support all first-year students with disabilities and non-disabled peers who are not on track to graduate, i.e. have failed more than 2 core courses during the first year and or have high absentee rates. To the extent possible for each student not on track, provide research-based strategies that would utilize all available resources, including mentoring, intervention services, counseling, tutoring, and other supports that are likely to reverse the student's performance trend. And so while I think Dr. Hamilton had addressed this earlier, we provided data. It wasn't specific enough for the monitor, so we're going to outline now what our specific plan is to come into compliance and to ensure that students with disabilities and all students are on track for graduation. So we are using the monitoring statement's recommendations for providing research-based strategies to provide supports for at-risk students to reverse the student's performance trend. Our plan includes working with the technology department to obtain the names of 9th grade students who are failing 2 or more subjects and or have absences totaling 5 or more days and or excessive unexcused class absences beginning on October 21st, 2019. So that's our first baseline point. It's our progress report, when our progress reports come out, and so we'll be able to identify the cohort of students that we're talking about. The second thing that we will do is, in collaboration with the high school teams, consisting of the building administrator, school counselor, social worker, and attendance teacher. An individual remediation plan will be developed for each at-risk student. The remediation plan will include SMART goals and incorporate 6-week progress monitoring cycles. The progress updates will be delivered bi-weekly and supports will be titrated if necessary. The third thing that we will be doing, the remedial plans for each student will include research-based interventions, including as applicable, mentoring opportunities, avid tutorology. Each 9th grade student this year is assigned an avid tutor. The tutor will be responsible for monitoring each student's services as their case manager. I think it's going to be a combination of tutor and avid teacher will case manage each student's supports and services. The second thing will be intervention services to focus on academic and attendance supports. Third, we will provide counseling by school social workers. And fourth, tutoring opportunities at the high school. An attendance team will be established to review attendance data bi-weekly and meet with students and families. All areas will be monitored and progress reported as mandated in the agreement. Data will be collected by the Student Services Office, that's by Mrs. DePaul and myself, to review the above referenced items in order to ensure that the interventions are taking place and reviewed regularly.
While the district still has work to do and is trying to eliminate further incidents of non-compliance, the most recent monitoring statement shows that the district is making extraordinary progress toward the goals and milestones of the RAP. The next monitoring statement is due on January 31st, 2020. At that time, the district shall again report on its progress towards meeting the compliance goals and milestones set forth in the settlement and agreement. Please be sure to check the Special Ed Department website to find the monitoring statements and additional information relative to the district's special education programs and services. And that concludes this portion of the superintendent's report relative to the special ed noncompliance corrective action plan. Thank you. The next item on the superintendent's action plan is related to an update on the bond. Our bond presentation, as we approach the final phase of the implementation of the 2020 vision, we thought it would be appropriate to pause and give an update on what's been spent on the bond, what projects have been complete, what projects are pending, and which projects remain. So I'm going to ask Mr. Silver, Mr. Babiello, and Mr. Colicchio to come and facilitate this conversation around the bond.
Good evening. We're going to give you an update tonight on the bond, on our projects, where we stand on the money, and Ken Babiello, our architect, will begin the presentation.
So the first thing I thought it would be important for us to do is to take a look back and just get a sense of where we were when the bond started, the conditions that were present in our district that served as a catalyst for this bond. And this started by looking at some facility needs, some academic needs, and creating a system where it was a marriage between the kind of facilities that lend themselves to high quality education and matching that with an academic vision. This is the Columbus Auditorium. As you can see, it was in dire need of renovation. The auditorium had not been renovated in decades, and this is what it looked like prior to. This is the Williams Auditorium, another project that was in dire need of renovation. This is what it looked like prior to the implementation of the 2016 bond. Columbus School, we had to ready our classrooms to ensure that we were able to offer seats to our pre-K students and expand our academic program to a pre-K through 8 configuration at our elementary level. So these are pictures of classrooms that needed to be remediated. This is homeschool. If you look at this picture, you really can't tell the difference in a classroom from 2016 and a classroom from 1916. It has not changed very much. This is Lincoln School. The partitions were a bit of a concern regarding safety hazards in terms of security measures, our ability to have lockdowns and lockouts. The carpeting that was in the building contained often contaminants that many students had allergic reactions to. At Parker School, again, to ready our buildings for a rigorous instructional program around the rollout of pre-K and the reconfiguration of our district. The Thornton Auditorium, which has become the staple of our community. This is what the facility looked like. It had not been renovated since its construction. This is the foyer and the currently known as the atrium at Thornton, and the roof, which was in significant disrepair as well, and we were able to remediate that as part of the implementation of the bond. The fields at Mount Vernon High School needed significant restoration. They were inappropriate for a competitive sports program. They were not conducive for members of the community who saw this as a place where they would like to have access to as well. So this field has also been significantly renovated and upgraded to be compliant with current regulations. This is the site currently known as Mandela, which is in the process now of being completely gutted. I was able to visit the school last week and to see the progress of the demolition in preparation for the restoration of that building. But this is what some of our classrooms look like, and this is where our children were being educated prior to the 2016 bond. These are bathrooms at Mandela that are also slated obviously for renovation, as again the building is being gutted and transformed into an elementary school. This is the entranceway, the entrance at the building formerly known as A.B. Davisley, currently known as the Mount Vernon STEAM Academy. The foundation at the main entrance of the building was deteriorating to such an extent that it was actually unsafe. That has been renovated, but the erosion of this foundation and the mortar here needed significant rehabilitation. And there was patchwork done, but clearly the structural damage was beyond just being patched. The STEAM Academy was the beneficiary of a brand new media center. Now this was not a bond project, but as we were looking at making our academic space more conducive to rigorous instructional programming, I thought it would be appropriate to see how far we have come as a district in a very short period of time. And now I'm going to ask Mr. Babiello to review the current status of our district and what those before pictures look like today.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So we're very excited to report where we are today with the 2016 bond work as we enter into this final leg of the bond. This is our last year. We're full steam ahead with the Mandela projects and the Mount Vernon STEAM Academy at this point, and we are wrapping up projects previously in construction. And we're going to go through a quick recap of where we are as a whole, and quickly project by project, and then followed up by the financials with Mr. Silver of the status of the bond. So just as a overview of the 28 projects, bond projects shown tonight, well, in these two slides here, 20 are now completed, 6 are in progress, and 2 are upcoming. The 2 upcoming include the Grimes Annex demolition, which we did recently bid, but we are rebidding the demolition portion of the contract to accommodate schedule adjustments and scope modifications, as well as the balance of the IT and security projects Phase 2, which include Mandela and Mount Vernon Steam Academy. So to go project by project, Graham, obviously we had our ribbon cutting tonight. The project is substantially complete. To touch base on the scope and status, this project did include, or I should say was part of our pre-K to 8 rollout. We also had a Phase 1 that included the site work completed last year. The new main entrance, as you saw tonight at the ribbon cutting, stair and corridor renovations, upgrades to our emergency systems, as well as IT and security upgrades. In terms of the status, the fields have been completed, the renovations are substantially complete, and the remaining work items are related to general construction, where the general contractor actually had dissolved, and we are in the process of working with the bonding company to complete those remaining punch list items. So just some quick imagery of the project. The Columbus Auditorium, as Dr. Hamilton mentioned, is complete. That was a complete gut rehab of the auditorium, and actually that project was not part of the bond, it was funded through capital projects. The Williams Auditorium, also completed. This was part of the bond projects. Again, a gut renovation of the facility. And some imagery of the completed project. The 5 schools. The 5 schools project, again, part of the pre-K to 8 rollout, was completed last summer. This image was the Columbus Science Room. The scope overview included Columbus, Williams, Lincoln, Holmes, Parker, and we also did work at the Track Aiken School to accommodate pre-K. Again, completed summer 2018, and all the spaces are occupied. The bottom left image is at Williams, where we addressed science rooms and eliminating the operable partitions at those rooms that were renovated. Here's a photo of the Holmes Science Lab completed and occupied. Holmes pre-K. The Thornton renovations. Again, scope overview at Thornton. We had a building-wide interior renovation, which included the full auditorium rehab, roof repairs. The exterior additions include the stair tower, gym storage, and service elevator additions, and site work improvements. Where we stand currently, the roof repairs are completed. The interior spaces are completed, and there's some punch list being addressed currently. The auditorium lobby, is occupied. We are having the ribbon cutting and dedication ceremony on October 19th. The gym and service elevator addition are 60% complete. The stair tower, the foundation work is now complete. We ran into several issues with soil conditions and having to address that during the course of construction. We're now at a point where the actual addition construction will be occurring. The site parking and sidewalks are substantially complete. We'll be addressing punch list items. and the expected completion of the additions is this winter. Here is a picture of the completed auditorium. As you can see, it's a drastic difference from the imagery you saw earlier in the presentation. We're really excited about this space. It's fantastic, and if you're available, definitely join us for the dedication ceremony. Another shot of the auditorium. Here is the dance studio completed. Here's the new experimental theater completed. And the school hosts a bunch of events in this space. It's really a multifunctional space, which is great. That brings us to the recently completed Pennington addition. General overview, a two-story classroom addition, including general instruction rooms, science labs, new cafeteria, bathrooms, and a new site configuration, including drop-off. The status, the renovation of the existing building was completed last summer. The addition is now occupied as of the start of this school year, and we're addressing punch list items. The north and south site work are both substantially complete, and we're now addressing punch lists. And the west area of the site, including the play area, is still under construction. The expected completion late fall this year. Here's some imagery of the recently completed media center in the addition. New corridors in the addition. One of the general classrooms at the second floor. Our covered walkway and science room. And just to recap on the renovation portions of the project in the existing building, we had created new pre-K and K spaces, as you see here. And all that work was completed last year and the punch list addressed. So that brings us to the more recent construction projects underway, including the STEAM Academy in Mandela. And you can see here, and we'll show some additional imagery, but as Dr. Hamilton had mentioned, we went above and beyond the scope of the bond work to address items such as the entry and the whole stair approach from Gramerton Avenue. We did masonry and stucco work, and if you haven't seen it recently, you should definitely check it out. It came out beautiful. We're really excited about this, as well as the wind turbines that we installed with Michael's help that are solar and wind generative, which is really fitting for the STEAM Academy. So to touch on scope, we actually have two projects. There's an exterior component and an interior component to this project. The exterior is addressing the roofing and masonry concerns, and the interior is to convert the building into a STEAM facility. So that includes renovations of interior classrooms to provide engineering labs, maker spaces, science instructional spaces, and robotics, as well as digital fabrication. Students will be using machinery such as 3D printers. In terms of status, the exterior construction started this spring, is ongoing by work area. The masonry is roughly 60% complete, the roofing 50%, with the expected completion at the end of this coming summer, consistent with our 2020 vision rollout. The project for the interior is actually phased by wing. We had closed off the south wing for this first component of construction, and then we'll then be performing a switch over to occupy that south wing and continue construction in the north wing of the building. And that progress is roughly 30% complete. And again, this will be one of the final projects completed for the 2020 vision. So some imagery of the detailed work that we just completed at the entry. On the left, you can see the reconstructed supporting walls at the entry steps, the new stucco at the stairways of the monumental entrance as you approach the building, as well as the wind turbines. Progress photo of the roofing replacement. This is shown at the gym, as well as adjacent to the auditorium, and a shot of the south wing exterior masonry repairs that are underway. That brings us to the athletic fields facility. Quick overview, we had done the phase 1 work, which included the track and the tennis courts. Phase 2, which is wrapping up, includes the baseball field, which is complete, the softball field, which is complete. The soccer field is essentially complete, but we need to give it a period for the facade to take root. And the running path, which is substantially complete. We've also added some scope items, which are actually some of our change order items for tonight, which included provisions for additional dugouts at the baseball field, javelin events, and safety netting that we felt was very bad. So, image of the completed track and football field, the new entryway, which we actually paved, coming in from the north end of the site. This brings us to Trap Hagen, also part of our pre-K to 8 rollout. This is the new Trap Hagen science room that was just completed this summer. Pretty self-explanatory. We'll be addressing the punch list items here. The Pennington fields, which are also completed. This was a creation of the new field facility for this school. It includes the ball field, benches, landscaping, and walkways. We're substantially complete. One of the items left to complete is the connection from the building. There's a small portion of walkway that will be addressed once that west area of the site is completed. They're separate contracts. Modular classrooms are installed at Trap Hagen to accommodate the 2 needed classrooms until the Mandela project is online. And our IT and security projects are still underway. We're just about complete with phase 1 here at Graham and Pennington, and we'll be wrapping up Thornton in the coming weeks. And then we'll be moving on to Mandela and the Mount Vernon STEAM Academy, which is up at SED, currently under review, and will go immediately to bid following the approval. And that brings us to Mandela. And if you've driven down Gramerton, you'll see a whole other elevation of scaffold that's just gone up. So just to touch on the scope, this is a complete building renovation, including roof replacement, exterior repairs, and a complete gut interior renovation of the building to accommodate our new spaces and create another neighborhood school for pre-K. We're currently about 35% complete with our expected completion tracking for September of 2020. And the current work is focusing on the stair tower addition, the roof and masonry at the exterior before we get to the winter months, and the interior renovation throughout. And you'll see in the coming images, there's work at the walls, floors, and mechanical and electrical trades. So a picture of the foundation work for the new stair tower. Photos at the lower level corridor on your left showing the ductwork and electrical systems being installed. And a typical classroom, this one's shown on the second floor, showing the repairs to the flooring systems and walls. This photo is at the gym, which is being restored. And some imagery of the general construction throughout, where we're creating new classrooms, repairing the roof, the plumbing and mechanical roughnings are being installed, and the ductwork for the mechanical systems is going up, as well as the new wall finishes and the corridors are already being installed in some areas. We wanted to just show a couple quick images of some of the discovered conditions that we are experiencing. The photo on the left is actually what used to be a steel lintel that's completely rusted out. Items such as that we did capture ahead of time due to the probes and investigative demo that we did perform, and those items are captured in our bid documents and being addressed. There's some other items that have come up as we prepared, or as we did the demolition of items such as the parapet at the roof, where it was just impossible to see every condition that we're now uncovering. And what we're finding is certain sections of the building were built completely differently, and we're addressing them as it comes up. But we're about to take a more holistic approach with the balance of the demolition, so we can more holistically address it and know what we're up against, most efficiently address it going forward. But you'll see some of the deteriorated substrate conditions in that middle picture, which is showing the roof structure, which is actually wood construction sitting on top of some masonry support and steel, but that masonry support and steel is in different levels of deterioration depending where we are along the facade. And the photo on the right, we uncovered some rotted wood framing at the windows that we're going to have to address. And we're working with the contractors to come up with the most effective solutions possible. In terms of some of the upcoming work, there's the Grimes site work and annex demolition. Again, we had bid this project out. We have awarded the electrical component of the job at the main building, but in terms of the demolition of the annex, we've now realized that we have to make some scheduling adjustments, and we'd like to make some adjustments to the scope, so we'll be rebidding that component for an expected completion by fall 2020. And as Dr. Hamilton mentioned, one of the other projects that was not part of the bond, but we wanted to showcase, was the Mount Vernon STEAM Academy Media Center. And that was a space, an existing space that had flooded, and we did a gut rehab of that space, and it's really consistent with the 21st century school instruction that we're implementing here as we roll out in 2022. And you should definitely check out this space. It's fantastic. And just some images of the group seating and project-based learning environments that we're creating in these spaces. So again, we're moving forward. We're on track for 2020 as a whole, and we're making progress for our community. And with that, we'll get into the financial updates.
Good evening again. You may have noticed we didn't spend a lot of time rehearsing because we wanted to seem authentic when we present this tonight. I think we did. I wanted to take you through some of the costs and some of our achievements having to do with the costs for our $108 million bond. Joe? We'll right there. So first I want to say that we anticipate, or we're hoping, we expect that this bond will be on time and on budget. Overall, we do not anticipate spending more than the authorized $108 million. The distribution of that has changed through the years when we had our first vote in 16, second vote in 17, to add Mandel on. So some of the costs, they're up there, but we're going to take you through some of this. So right now in progress is the STEAM Academy. We've completed the ceiling abatement, completed the modular swing space and surveys at Trapphagen. We happen to have it under Mandela as $400,000 for those two modulars, but they could be attached to any major project. It could also be attached somewhere else. And we are doing the renovations interior and exterior, masonry and roof, and early on we did the home's unit ventilators. That was the heating units in the home school. Right now we're doing the Mandela renovation of $22 million. The original budget was $18 million. We moved some money from the IT portion of the bond into that, and then we took some of our contingency, which you will see still exceeds $2 million, but we took $1 million from the contingency to make that project whole at $22 million, where we expect to be. The fields, our phase one of the fields included the track, the tennis court, and the football field at $1.8 million. We did the remaining fields in the classroom at $3.7. In order to do fields, you must do something inside in order to get state aid. And we did a classroom renovations of abatement of some 8 classrooms. And we have Pennington addition, field improvements, the security, and the modulars, which were the first thing that went up in Pennington when we first started several years ago. We did abatement at Trapphagen, and so the Graham site work was a part of this. In addition to that $1.5 million that we spent on the site work, there was another $1 million actually spent on the site work that That was a grant from Assemblyman Pretlow's office to complete that work. We finished the interiors and entrance, security is almost done, and the Grimes is the major project that's not finished yet. We want to get that building down so that we can improve the play space for the kids in that building. But as Mr. Baviella said, we need to rebid that project with a different scope. Early on, we did the ceiling abatement at Hamilton, and Joe, move up. So then I think we missed something there, Thornton. So the Thornton renovations on the roof and the Thornton security, that's part of the major project at Thornton. Then we bought a small piece of land at Traphagen to even out the property. Then we did the science labs at the 5 schools, Columbus, Holmes, Parker, Lincoln, and Williams. And we also did the Williams Auditorium. The Graham Auditorium and the Parker Auditorium were done under the Excel grant. And we also did some of the science rooms. We swapped out to do the Williams Auditorium, swapped out some science rooms to do under the budget. That's all done. We have the flue liners were early on. Our pre-bond costs are noted there before we got started. And then we had professional fees for projects that were canceled, and then projects that have to be rebid. So altogether, we expect to be on budget, on time for September of 2020, and we are very, very proud of the progress we've made. I should mention, before we stop, I want to mention that we are going to be getting somewhere around 73 to 75% state aid on this, and you may have noticed that in the past 5 years, taxes only went up once, and we've been paying for this bond. It didn't come free. And so we have done a good job in managing our projects and our finances to be able to onboard the expenses of this before some of the building aid starts.
Thank you. So, trustees, I know you saw essentially all of this in your Friday packet, but if you have additional questions, we'll be glad to take them now. And if you don't have any questions, we can return to being on the dais and continue the meeting. Are there any questions that we can answer for you? Yes, Trustee Mitchell?
When we travel through the city, we see different things that have been done that are capital expenditures, that are not related to the bond. Is there something that we could possibly ever see so that we can split that apart?
Absolutely.
Because if we're approached by a community member or a stakeholder who says, hey, I saw this happening over here in Mount Vernon, our bond money went to that, and I have a question mark over my head.
Okay, what we're in the process of doing right now is compiling a list of all the projects done, those projects that were capital improvement projects, as well as projects that are bond related, and once that compilation is complete, it will list projects by school, by date, and their cost. So you'll have that information. It's just taken us some time. We've done a lot over the last 5 years. It's just taken us some time to get that information together. But we hope to have that done in the next week or so.
Okay.
Trustee McCollum?
Yeah, I would like to see a direct comparison to what we told the public in 2017, the second referendum, on how much money we'd be spending on which project and compare it to where we ended up. That's what I don't see. I know that the big picture, I see the big picture, and then we've got about $4 million left that maybe haven't spent. But we need to compare what we promised the public we'd do in 2017 to what we actually did.
Well, we'll be glad to get that information together. Do know that we tried to be as general as possible because of the rebidding of projects that have to go back out and some contingencies. So we wanted to ensure that that bid process was as competitive as possible, and by not showing all of our cards at once. So we'll be able to put that information together, but we may ask that you keep it not for public disclosure, but for your own information until those projects are completely bid. Yes. Mr. Goodside, how are you?
I'm good. I think it would be very helpful, I know you don't go back that far, but it would be helpful, is if you go back and look at the file for 2007 looks of these buildings. And to compare that to because your comparison is amazing. But if you go back to 2007, when we did the facilities development then, and to see how disastrous our buildings were, this is a miracle, and you really need to be applauded and your staff, because at that point, we didn't think we'd ever get here.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that frame of reference. Any other questions? Yes.
This is that we still have $86 million to spend.
Some of that is already allocated.
Allocated.
Yes, but that is correct.
That is correct. And
Correct.
it looks like we spent already $100 million.
Yes.
So, the way that the school looks, you know.
Exactly. I mean, I think we've stretched those funds a very long way, which is the creative genius of our budget committee and our business office, and our facilities people. We've really been able to, I think, cover, as Mr. Kusai say, a lot of ground in a very short period of time. Whose hand was it? Trustee Mazzone?
Yeah, can Mr. Silver also speak to how the financing of this has rolled out compared to how we anticipated in terms of what
That's a
projected interest
very
rates
good
are,
point.
what we actually ended up
Mr.
getting?
Silver, you get that?
Which obviously has a net effect on the actual cost of that.
So we did 2 borrowings so far, 2 bonds so far. We try to have as few bonds as possible because it is expensive to borrow besides the borrowing itself. And we also don't want to pay interest where we don't need the money yet. So we borrowed a total of $83 million so far. So we have about another $24 million to borrow. A portion of the 83 we've committed to 86, but we only spent 69 million. So the balance of that is invested. So we have about $14 million invested, but we're still paying interest on that. So that's the borrowing part. Was there another part to this question?
Is there any more borrowing left to do?
There's another $24 million to borrow.
And that's anticipated to be in one tranche, I assume.
That's correct.
Final one.
Yes.
And what interest rates did we project originally in budget versus what the interest rates actually were at the time we went to borrow?
I remember that our state aid is based on what we spend, so if the interest is a little more, we're still getting state aid on the expenditures as long as we're within the maximum cost allowance of the building. So we're paying various rates between 3.5 and I think 4.25 right now for that borrowing.
I guess my main question is I'm curious because interest rates, nobody knew in 2016 when we started budgeting this what it was going to end up with, but they ended up even lower this week.
They're lower now, but we are not eligible. We are not eligible to refinance these bonds yet.
No, I understand.
And when you explain again, when you say that 73% is, 75% is aidable,
So if we spend $100 million, we will get back somewhere in the vicinity of $73 to $75 million over 15 years. So it's divided in order for us to pay our debt service through that period of time.
so for the bond, the cost, the real cost would really be, the rent of 30 million or something. That means we get, right?
Close to that, but probably less than that, yes.
Madam President, that concludes the superintendent's report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton. We will now take committee reports. Trustee Miller, do you have a report on the strategic planning or family and community engagement committees this evening?
Yes. Family and Community Engagement we had a meeting Friday the 13th. And we discussed, we actually welcomed a couple of new parent liaisons to our group. And we talked about, one of the big things we were talking about is putting together a standardized template of the year-long activities at each school. And Rick McCormick actually helped me gather some of this information. And as a result, we have a template that we think could be very useful. We're going to try to get that done standardized for each school so that every trustee will have an opportunity to attend events at their assigned school or any other school. We're trying to ensure that the trustees get out and support the initiatives of the parent liaisons and interface more with the community and just hear what the community has to say. One of the things that we have now is we have aggregated lists of events that are happening. So President Torres is going to be reconfirming, I think, the assignments of schools to trustees, and then we will be going out and making at least 2 visits, whether it's a morning meet and greet with the parents, whether it's attending a PTA meeting, what have you. So once again, having all this information is going to be great for us, and we'll be able to communicate that to our neighbors and other people in the community and make sure that we just continue to support the efforts of the family and community engagement team. Our next meeting is on October 1st at 3:30, I believe 3:30 at the Ed Center, and that's going to be the team that's going to be discussing the next event, My Brother's Keeper event, which is going to be next May. We were supposed to have it originally this past Saturday, which would have been a beautiful day to have it, but City Fest was scheduled on the same day. So we put it off till May, and the planning team is going to be starting on the 17th. I also have attended a few meetings, thanks to Dr. Hamilton, on the reconstitution of the Mount Vernon Educational Foundation, and we're really moving along very, very nicely. We're going to be holding an information session in October. There's going to be information posted on the website and flyers going out to have an information session about what the foundation does, what it has done, what we intended to do going forward. And we are seeking, the foundation, the committee is seeking board members. So we're for the foundation. So we're going to build an entirely new board. And we've, thanks to the efforts on the part of Dr. Hamilton, we've been able to reinstate our nonprofit status. And we intend to go out and raise a lot of money for the district. So if you know anyone who wants to submit a resume, we're looking for fundraisers, event planners, people of that nature. If you have a neighbor, someone you know who might have the, what we call it, time, treasure, or talent to participate in the board, I think we're looking to constitute with 9 board members initially. So make sure they submit their resume. There'll be information. There's a website, an email link for information at MountVernonEducationalFoundation.org, and we'll be taking resumes and then interviewing candidates for that. So we're hoping to have that up and running by November. And our next meeting on that is October 2nd. And I think that's all I have to report. We are going to be meeting, having a strategy committee meeting soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Miller. Trustee Saunders, do you have a committee report for the Health and Wellness Committee or the Special Education Committee this evening?
No, I don't.
Thank you. That concludes our committee reports this evening. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda for curriculum and instruction. Can I have a motion to approve resolution 6.1? Second? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Abstained? Are there any questions, comments regarding this resolution? Okay, fine, okay. So the next item on the agenda is going to be resolution, it's the human resources resolutions. Are there any questions, comments, or discussion before we vote? No questions, comments? Okay, may I have a motion to approve the human resources resolutions?
So.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Do we have any new employees at our meeting?
We do, and I'd like to begin by congratulating Miss Jackie Green, who has just been approved as the acting principal of Edward Williams School while Dr. Waterman is recovering. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we proceed to the next resolutions for the business office, I'd like to ask Ken Silver and Michael Policio to please approach the podium. Will? Yeah. So I'd like to first ask that you give us a summary of the change orders that are on the business office memorandum. If you could go through them and explain them, what they're for, why they're being submitted, and just give us a summary.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So we have several change orders this evening. The first one is at the Mount Vernon High School athletic field. It is the design of the new dugouts. When we first started the project in conceptual design, we value engineered the design of the dugouts, but we needed to see the field in place in order to give the direction through documents of what the final products would look like. And that created the cost of the new dugouts. So the dugouts will be fencing all around with a steel roof, and they will have an entrance up both ways and a storage area on one side for some of the various equipment. Also staying with the Mount Vernon High School field, these next two change orders, they are at the track and field section, the throwing areas, if you will. So the throwing areas are where the track and field will throw the javelin, they'll throw the discus, the shot put, and the hammer. So in those areas, during conceptual design and actually during design, they were grass. They were left as the grass, just the field that existed, and we would seed inside. However, through further investigation, we found that in order to host competitive events such as state and county tournaments, we needed to have a different type of surface for those throwing areas. So the surface is a compacted surface that will aid in the measuring of the throw differently than the grass will, and we use the same as the warning track that's around the baseball and the softball field. It's a compacted gravel that is made specifically for those two events, and that is those two change orders that are with javelin and the throwing area for the shot put. We also needed, because of the grade in the shot put area, we needed to put a retaining wall in order to keep the shot on the path so it wouldn't go down into the wooded area. So that was another addition that we had to do as an unseen for condition. The next one is at Thornton High School. It is the dance studio. The dance studio is a very complex room. It's got mirrors all around, and we needed to put up almost like we need to box in an existing conduit for both electrical and plumbing into this soffit area. So we needed to do that, and that It required different types of shoring and blocking behind it, and so that created the unforeseen change order. The next one is also at Thornton High School. When we were designing the atrium area, in order to work above the atrium with the other trades other than the general contractor, we had to make access to that area. So we created a temporary access, and so we were able to get the other trades up there and stay on schedule. And then the final one, is in the Mount Vernon STEAM Academy. When this was an unforeseen condition, so when we were removing one of the floors in one of the rooms, we detected some plywood underneath the floor. So that was the first substrate under the finished floor. That was tested and found to be full of ACM, asbestos-containing material, and then also the floor under that was tile and had to be removed as well. So it was about 2,200 square feet of asbestos tile that had to be removed, and that created the change order. End of report.
Are there any questions for Michael on any of the change orders? Any questions, comments, on any of the change orders? No? Okay, thank you, Michael. Did you have one?
Your question is on.
No, it's. Do you have any comments on any other items? Are there any comments or questions of other items on the business memorandum? There are quite a few, so if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, anything that you'd like to raise now, this would be the perfect time.
Yes, the first two items, 1 and 2, regarding the Grimes project.
Yep.
So 1 and 2, I think they're anticipated to fall $2 million, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Into the mic so you can hear.
I'm sorry, these are new mics, I'm not used to these things. If I'm not mistaken, that full project's supposed to, over 2 million, 2 million 2, something? Anybody?
Mrs. Silver, can
That's
you
what we
address,
saw in the bond.
can you respond to that, please?
Sure. The Grimes demolition site work is estimated to be about $2 million. We arrived at that by looking at the bids, which were so disparate in their award, in what they proposed, that we decided we had better leave some extra money there, because we know that there's going to be a huge abatement portion to that, and that will probably cost as much as taking the building down itself. And then we're going to create the play space. Tonight, you awarded the electrical portion of that bid, which is just for the emergency lighting at the actual Grimes building, which was part of the overall bid.
Not the annex, right?
Right. This has nothing. That award for the electric has nothing to do with the annex. It was just a part of the same project in the same site.
So my question, you want to answer your question?
No, I'm still processing.
She's processing. So my question is, I kind of put this to the board, well, to everyone, is do we think that, and I know this was approved in the bond, but do we really think that $2 million on play space is the appropriate use of the money when we have a lot of other potential bond work, facilities work that could use that money perhaps before? I mean, they do have some play space, and we could probably augment that for a much lesser amount of money as opposed to taking down the whole building. So that's just my question. Do we think that that's the best use of that $2 million if we consider the scope of all the other things we're trying to accomplish with other buildings?
Yeah, I'm sorry, to capitalize on that really quickly, and that's kind of where my thought was. So if we're still legitimately having complaints that there are bathrooms that still have to be renovated in the district, I don't see spending $2 million to expand play space right now. Are you sighing? Did I hear that? I do love when I inspire tics in people. It's fantastic.
Hello again. So the play space that's going to occur is a result of it. It's not what the intention of it is. That's what we'll get when we do the demolition. The thing is, the building has to come down because of the hazardous material that's contained in the building, the hazard that it creates, and the blight to the neighborhood. That, if you've seen that building, it just needs to come down. It's condemned, it's dangerous, it's hard to keep people out of it. We have it fenced, but the building, it has, inside the building, it has asbestos all over it, and there's elevator shafts that are exposed. I mean, we have to do serious work in there just to make it safe to be there. So as a result of the demolition, the play space will occur. It's not why we're doing it.
For the record, I'm not saying it doesn't have to occur. My question is, do we think it makes the most sense to have it occur today versus potentially further down the line when, again, I keep hearing complaints from the public that there are buildings that don't have acceptable bathrooms. So if we're saying, again, I appreciate the danger it creates, and I am a mother, so I appreciate the propensity for children to go in places, even let's say adults, to go in places that are not safe and could, hurt them, and I get that. My only concern is just today, what is our most pressing need, and would there be a more pressing need that we could spend that $2 million on?
So I always think that whatever we do, we can find something in the district that is probably a little bit more important or a little bit more important to whatever community we're working in. That was identified as a hazardous area that we needed to attend to, so we put it into our planning for the bond. Again, if the board wants us to redirect money or anything like that, we'll be more than happy to move on to a different project. So it was identified, it is hazardous, and in our estimation, it needs to be demolished. And the positive to that is it will create green space. It is not the reason why we're taking that.
The other thing too for, as the board, if the board is considering revising this is one of the projects that we went out with the repurpose vote on the bond and sold it to the community. This was part of the scope of the 2016 bond. So I don't know for certain that that's why some people may have come out to support the bond, but clearly it was part of our messaging and our presentation to seek overall community approval on the bond. That's about demoing that site.
Yeah, that's exactly why I asked the question I did earlier. I want to see this presentation with a column next to what we told people the projects we were doing in 2017 and see, have we done them all? Have we not done them all? Did we spend twice as much on one project and half on another? I don't know, but that's what I want to see, specifically for questions like this.
But we're not voting on that.
No, we're not.
So why don't we just table that for another board meeting? We're not voting on demolishing that line space right now.
No, I think maybe maybe the board needs to have we need to have a conversation about that another time before we go forward with scheduling the demolition.
I agree. Let's table that for another time. Is that okay, Madam President? Yes, that's okay.
Can I just clarify that there is no agenda item 8.2? Is mine the only one that says 8.1 and then 8.3? I don't have an 8.2.
I don't have an 8.2 either. Oh.
Okay. Nothing in there.
Just not voting on an invisible agenda. There is no 8.2. Let the record show.
What was that?
Don't know what happened. Okay. So there's nothing that we're voting on this evening related to the demolition of garages.
Well, we're declining,
We're
we're,
rejecting all
Yeah.
construction bids.
the
right?
agenda item is to vote.
Right.
If we approve it, that means we're rejecting all bids
Right.
to do demolition
Right.
at this time.
So I recommend that we continue this discussion. I think discussion is going to serve as a springboard for our roundtable discussion this evening, where we consider we start to begin the conversation about what the priorities are in the district, what they will be going forward post-2020. So I will know if anybody else has any other questions or comments related to other items on the business memorandum, business office memorandum. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Then can I please have a motion to approve the business office memorandum of truth? Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Okay. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 8.3, authorization to terminate Doctoral Construction, LLC contract, interior renovations, and site work for Graham School. Does anyone have any comments, questions, concerns? Oh. I'm sorry. Can I have a motion to place this resolution on the table?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, questions, comments, discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Yes.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 8.4, authorization to terminate Doctoral Construction, LLC contract abatement and reconstruction Phase 2, Mount Vernon Education Center. Can I have a motion to place this resolution on the floor? Second?
Second.
Questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda, Resolution 9.1, approval of school improvement personnel memorandum number 2. Can I have a motion to place this resolution on the floor? Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns, discussion? Comments, questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, Student Services, Resolution 10.1, approval of Student Services Memorandum Number 1, dated September 17, 2019. Can I have a motion to place the motion? Can I have a motion to approve the Student Services Resolution?
Motion.
Second? Questions, comments, discussion? Any questions, comments, or discussion on the motion? Do you need a few minutes? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, item number 12. It's a resolution to authorize an amendment to an employment agreement with Michael Thompson. Can I have a motion to approve a contract amendment for Michael Thompson?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments, discussion? No questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Okay. The next item on the agenda, under Board of Education, there is a policy first reading. Trustee McOwen, do you
Yes.
want to read it?
Hello, everyone. Tonight, for our first reading, is the first draft of the what we're calling branding of the district, names and designations. This policy, we've mentioned it several times over the summer, is the result of the ongoing effort to gel, for lack of a better verb, the presentation of the district to the public. We officially, I don't think it's actually officially said anywhere, we officially state the, officially present the logo of the district. We officially say the mascot is the Knights. All these things that are part of Mount Vernon history are never actually in our policy, and we're going to make them in the policy. We also reference what we produced as what we call a style guide, which directs things such as how you should use the name of the district, the logo of the district, the font, the color scheme, all these things that every large organization should have to present a unified image of the district, so that when every different school does a different newsletter, they're all in different colors using different fonts. That's not effective or efficient or productive presentation of our district, and we want to be unified. It also covers things like signage, that when schools put up signs, we make sure that they're done in a uniform way across the district. This also sets in place the policy on the ability of the board to name buildings, auditoriums, things of that nature, fields and parks and everything, which is by law a responsibility, but we set forth kind of how that will work. To clarify, this policy does not, and nor is it intended at this time, to change the names of any schools. We're just setting up the policy for how this works. And again, this is for the first reading with anticipated second reading at the next meeting.
Thank you, Trustee McOwen. So this concludes the resolution portion of our meeting. We're now going to just enter into the portion of our meeting titled Roundtable, where the trustees will now continue our conversations that we began at our last meeting regarding our strategic planning. I think one of the concerns that have been raised is, where do we go from here? We talked about this the last time, and I think it's important, given our conversation about this resolution regarding the demolition of this uninhabitable, unusable building, and the allocation of funds for that. And I think Trustee Munoz raised a very important question with regard to whether or not that is something we want to proceed. And I know that that's something that was designated as a deliverable under the 2020 bond, but now at this point, is that something that we want to revisit? And I know that they're deliverables. I know that we would like to see the comparison between what was initially presented and planned and what was actually completed. But I think, given the many priorities and the needs in the district, I think it behooves us to revisit that conversation and determine whether or not the use of the money for the demolition of the building is something that we want to revisit. And do we think that that is money that would be best allocated at this time for that purpose? So I open the floor to my fellow trustees. I'd like to hear your thoughts and input on that.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we need a more educated, we need to know more about, what those issues are, yeah, to get more information, revisit, just like we did with Mandela, when the same type of issue was brought up, because I know the amount of thinking and time and effort that we put in the bond when we were putting together the bond. Also, just to dismiss some of those projects, for some others, valuable things too. We need to make a more educated decision, I believe. So, like Trustee Saunders said, we need to table it get more information, think about it, meet again and talk about it, you know, before we move on.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Christine.
I agree with the need more information. I think we need to direct what information we think we need to make that decision, because saying here we need the information and then leaving today not giving any direction as to what information we do need, we're not going to get the information for the next meeting either. So.
I think you need community comments. I think you need community input. I mean, we're talking about a building that's close in proximity to the Leominster Towers, to a relatively new building that was built without play space, and those children are entitled to that just as well as.
Excuse me, you're out of order. This is a roundtable for the board. So, okay, thank you for understanding.
You need community input, whether you like it or not.
Thank you for understanding.
If I can say something.
Trustee Mitchell?
Hi. I think that to piggyback on the idea that amount of money to spend on the demolition is, while it has its definite importance, I think that, and I was discussing with Dr. Name quietly a moment ago, do we know for certain that out of all the facilities that we saw in our presentation and slideshow today, there are other buildings in the district that were not mentioned at all? And my concern, and I'm sure that certain members of the public probably were concerned, that there are issues that we haven't seen or haven't spoken on yet. So I think to piggyback on Trustee Patterson, to spend $2 million, and I understand the paramount importance of a demolition of an unsafe facility where it is, I understand it, and the beneficial green space that we would get afterwards is definitely there. I would want to know that as we're spending, as we looked at how the bond has been spent, that when we look back as we approach 2020 and meeting our goals, that we haven't missed a whole slew of things in different sites that we should have found beforehand. So I think not so much to bury the plan, and I do recognize Dr. Hamilton reminding us that we did communicate to the public when we asked the public to come out and vote for the bond in 2016, and we did sell that as part of it. I think that the same public would still see value in the idea that we ensure that we dotted our I's and crossed our T's with the super important things like facilities and bathrooms and things like that.
If I can, the reason I said we should table is because I think the rest of the board needs to go visit some of the schools and see what may be more important than the demolition of that Grimes project. You know, I have the opportunity to walk around, my schools are Williams and Parker, and I had the opportunity to walk around those two schools, and I saw some things that I think are more important to me than demolishing that Grimes site. Now, there may be some other trustees that may think their schools are more important. So I think that we need to sit collectively and decide how we're going to redo this money. So I don't think it's the time right now to discuss that. I think when we have our retreat, we have much more time that we can sit down and prioritize what we need to do going forward and actually decide what we're going to do after the 2020.
So thank you for that, and I agree with that, and I'm glad you mentioned that about the trustees having different projects, because everyone has a project that they are an advocate for, and there are many, many positive areas where we can have an impact, and many areas where we want to make an impact, and I think that's all well and good. And I think that we need to, as a board, focus our attention and our goals and priorities, because obviously we can't have 50 different priorities or areas of focus. We've got to be concerted in what we think we want to deliver to our students, to our community, what those priorities are. And I think that for us, we're an academic institution, and so primarily it should be academic deliverables. Now, what does that entail? Having all of the necessary resources in place. We believe we have those resources in place. We just want to make sure that they are being utilized to the best possible capacity. And I think we also need to take a pause. We've just gotten results that we still need to get further information on. And we need to get information after those results are digested and analyzed further. That should feed what we do, but I think that our primary emphasis is maintaining academic equity and excellence in the district, and what does that mean for us now? And how do we balance the needs of a district that has so many competing needs, and yet try to achieve what it is that we want, is providing equity for all of our students. Trustee McCohen.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we focus the discussion here, because first of all, the reason it costs so much money to demolish this building is because it's full of asbestos, and it's really expensive to remove asbestos. That's why it costs a lot of money to remove this building. In terms, I want to make sure we understand, we're talking about kind of two different things here. One is we're 95+% spent or committed on projects for this bond, and there's like $2 to $4 million that haven't been committed yet. And that's all that's left. The one thing that was scheduled to do last, it happens to be this demolition. We could spend $4 million in every single building in the district very easily. We all know that when we did this bond, it was only half the work that we already knew needed to be done anyway. So there's plenty of work to do in every single building in the district. In terms of how we spend this specific amount of money with this specific bond, we have limitations of state law on how we can spend bond money. There's certain projects we can do things with it, as opposed to our general budget money. And there's only certain types of projects within that subset that can be aidable at the rate we want, right? So there's only a finite universe of projects that this particular, relatively small, $2 million out of 108 can be spent, right? And then we have the commitment we made to the public 2 years ago about how we're going to spend this $108 million, so we definitely need the information to say how we actually done everything we committed to do, both in the literal words of the bond referendums, both votes, which are relatively kind of generic because otherwise they'd be 100 pages long, and also the presentations that we made to the public at repeated meetings. So that, for me personally, that's what I want to see. I want to see the presentations that we made to the public and the wording of the resolution, and make sure that we've actually done everything we told people we would do. That's issue number one, right? And the second issue is, generally speaking, what are our future priorities for all the other capital projects that need to happen, and academics, and everything else that we're dealing with. So I appreciate that this has been like a springboard into our future goals, which we need to discuss. But as for this particular $2 million, let's just remember what we promised the public and do it. And then move on to the rest of the projects we have to do. The other $200 million of renovations that we could very easily spend if we had it.
Thank you, Trustee McCohen. And just as a reminder, I mean, I know there were a lot of, how can I say, areas for improvement that were identified in the 2015 building condition survey, and we are rapidly approaching 2020, and that will necessitate another building condition survey. And while we made a lot of improvements in the district and the buildings are looking so much better, there may be additional deficiencies for all intents and purposes that are identified in the 2020 building condition survey. And that's something else that we have to be mindful of as we go forward and figure out what are our priorities, how do we allocate our spending and do it in a way that is, you know, effective, efficient, and prudent, and reflects good stewardship.
If I may, I realize this is a board discussion, but just two things I'd like the board to keep on their radar as they contemplate this topic. One is having a clear understanding of how much money has already been allocated to that project, and the fact that it's very likely to be lost if that project is aborted. And secondly, I would encourage board members, before they make a decision, to take a look at that building in its current condition, so that you have a full picture of what that building in its current structure looks like, and period.
Thank you, Dr. Hamilton.
If I can, I'm sorry.
Dr. Trustee Munoz.
Not a doctor yet. You gave me a suggestion. So the two, I mean, just really quickly, to take a step back here, I am by no means suggesting we not do it. I'm just saying I think we need to evaluate other things, you know, because the reality is if we're talking about, if there are schools that are still having issues with having functional bathrooms, I have a problem across the board, regardless of what money is spent on whatever. Two, and this is where I feel like kind of like Chicken Little running around during every meeting screaming that the sky is falling. The fact of the matter is our budget is tight. We intentionally came out with a 0% tax increase. We knew what we were doing. The reality is we need to, at this point, particularly now that the last year's budget is almost finalized. Yes, no, maybe so, okay. Kind of, sort of. We need to really look at how we budgeted for this year and if we're even going to be able to carry the budget as we approved it. And that's a really big issue, and I think that everybody kind of, while we're talking about all of these projects, myself included, and we're talking about moving forward and spending whatever we're talking about spending on anything, we need to really make sure that what we're spending is showing a return on investment. And ultimately, I think that, you know, when we look at after-school programs or whatever programs we have in the buildings that cost money, we need to check that against the, you know, metrics to see if those things are bringing what they're supposed to bring. And the ultimate thing, you know, across the board is just we need to be smart with what we're doing. I think it's imperative that we understand, again, like, I'm stopped by parents all the time asking for busing. I don't even, sometimes, you know, I just don't even have an answer. I just smile and keep walking because I don't have a better answer than that. Because everybody, you know, I would love to provide busing for everybody. The reality is the drivers in the city may not like it that much either, but the reality is we just don't have it in the budget today as it stands. And the fact of the matter is our taxpayers are overburdened as it is today. And we can't keep relying on the taxpayers to do, to carry the burden. So that was one. And my other, having nothing to do with budget, I know, shocking, is that we have been talking to the library, well, I've been talking to the library about pushing a library card, because September is library card month, and we've been discussing if we can have an event maybe to push library cards in the schools, if anyone has any ideas. I know I talked to the parent liaisons, hi guys, about that last week, and we're going to try to come up with some, you know, prize for the classroom that gets the most library cards, but I think it's really important that we function as a unit and make sure that we partner with the other agencies in the city. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Munoz. Does anyone have any other?
Those opportunities that might be most obvious to us, and maybe and then the programs that we'd like to enhance or introduce that we may not have the funds for in our existing budget. You know, identify resources that we might be able to tap into for those. So we should probably, as a team, try to prioritize what those things are. To your point of prioritizing what we want to do and what we want to build on academically, we've already started, and what we still need to do.
Thank you, Trustee Munoz. I think at this point, if trustees do not have any other comments that they'd like to share, I'd like to end the roundtable early. Is that okay? Is everyone okay with that? Does anyone have any comments or questions or anything else that they'd like to discuss at this roundtable?
Can you remember, is this where I'm supposed to talk about unfinished business, new business? I think this replaces that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Hamilton, where do we stand with the student board rep?
I shared at the confidential this weekend. We have not had our first meeting yet. However, I have gone to the high schools and met the students that are being recommended, just so I can get a jump on it. I've asked them to submit letters of interest, which they have done. So we should be ready to have a person in place by the next meeting.
Excellent.
Mr. McCormick, do we need to enter into executive session this evening?
Yes, ma'am.
We need a motion to enter executive session for the discussion of the employment history of a particular person or persons and current pending litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. How long will we be in executive session? Where is that? expect to return in 45 minutes
And there will be action.
after the executive session. Sorry to stay there. Okay. We did, yeah, so this is all
We're back.
Yeah, we did it in the executive session. Can I have a motion to approve a settlement agreement with,
Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Mount Vernon City School District, having received and reviewed a settlement agreement and general release concerning an employee in executive session, hereby approves such settlement agreement and general release and authorizes and directs the superintendent of schools and the Board of Education president to execute such settlement agreement on behalf of the board.
So moved.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your attendance.